There's a new push to help policymakers understand the digital age we are living in today. Lost in the Supermarket is a collection of writings by various experts. Executive Director of American Compass, Oren says the goal is to, quote, provide a framework for disentangling the problem of economic concentration posed by big tech.
Oren joins us now to discuss. Welcome, Oren.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Why don't we start off by having you kind of get into the central, I think, part of your point, which is that big tech presents a different problem than what we've dealt with in sort of past industrial or technological revolutions. What we've seen over the course of the last 10 years develop actually creates a very different situation, and that what is one that policymakers need to learn how to address differently. Is that sort of what this booklet is getting into at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think that's very well put. And, I think it starts with defining what we mean by big tech. I mean, big tech can mean you're angry that, Google is too big. It could mean you're angry that Facebook is censoring the president. It can mean, that you don't like Uber and the way the gig economy works. And so I think it's really important to notice, what parts of big tech are kind of the same things we've been dealing with for 100 years. I mean, John D. Rockefeller had a really big company that had to be broken up once upon a time. And to the extent that you just don't like that Google is so big, you're really talking about the same kind of antitrust problem we've always had. I think what's so interesting about tech today is that our whole society has gone through this revolution that's, I think, the biggest since the Industrial Revolution in the kinds of information we have, the way our economy works, the way we interact with each other. And that's where we'd love to see policymakers focus more attention. Think about, how are our lives really just different because of the technology around us, and what new kinds of policy might we need for that? Just like we needed totally new kinds of policy in the last century after the Industrial Revolution.
What do we need? What kind of new policy do we need in this new world?
Well, I think one place to start is by looking at media and the way that media is operating today. There are a lot of wonderful things about social media. It's fantastic that Rising can be a show, right? Once upon a time, there were just 3 networks, and if you weren't Walter Cronkite, you weren't on the air. But a world where sort of media is making its money by collecting data about people and I would say almost trying to addict them to products and then selling that to advertisers is also not an especially healthy one. One thing Facebook has admitted is they looked at, gosh, should we, promote less conflict on our platform? And then they realized actually we would get less, we would earn less money if we weren't promoting conflict. So forget about that. And so, I don't think that's healthy. So looking at, for instance, targeted advertising as a business model and the way that we use data to sort of put people into bubbles and saying maybe that shouldn't be allowed in a lot of cases, or we need to regulate that differently from the way that we, ever regulated television and newspapers. I think that's one really good example. And then just to give one more, I think when you think about our labor market, there's a lot of really important things about employment, about having an employer, about having a relationship with a company. And it may be cool that you can build an app that just connects people and fires people every day, depending on what the company needs. But I don't think that's a healthy way to run an economy either.
Well, like I always say, Joe Rogan is the new Walter Cronkite. Oren, one more question. On the Lost in the Supermarket title, which I think is a very poignant one, what are you getting at there? It sounds like it's tapping into sort of the way this economic structure is impacting our culture. But Lost in the Supermarket, what is the message of that title for this project?
Yeah, it's a great question. When, we started out thinking about what's the set of issues we wanted to talk about, and some was privacy, some was media, some was gig economy. And then when we stepped back and looked at it, what we realized was the theme running through all of it is the way that markets and our market economy just work different, that the assumptions that we used to have about how a market economy would work have to change, that we are in this new supermarket where markets extend in many new ways and into new places, that they are so much faster and more efficient. And there's lots of good things about that, right? We like the supermarket. but that you have to notice it, and that right now it feels like we all collectively and policymakers in particular are lost in it. We're sort of wandering around and we see the cool stuff on the shelves, but we have to actually figure out how to shop in it, how to find what we're looking for, and how to make sure that at the end of the day it's working for us. We're not just working for it.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Oren.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.
Just a fascinating conversation and a very interesting project. Next on Rising, founder of The Daily Poster, David Sirota, discusses some of his latest reporting on Tom Perez's potential run for governor and how farmer giants have been getting special access to European Union officials in an effort to block patent waivers. That's coming up when Rising returns.